Welcome to episode 1 of 5-minute chess openings. Today's video, the ponziani opening, starts off with the most common moves in chess. In this position most people go with openings like the Italian game or Rai Lopez, which brings to the reason why you would want to go a different path, with pawn c3. The reason is quite simple: trying new openings is a great way to keep your chess fresh. Learning lots of lines and variations is boring, but you don't have to worry about that. I studied these lines and created a straightforward plan. The main idea of c3 is to be aggressive at the center and prepare d4 against an unprepared opponent. This could result in a sequence like this. Obtaining full control of the center, which is the main goal of the ponziani opening. However, black can achieve a perfectly fine position by taking advantage of the fact that we can't defend the e-pawn with knight. Defending here can tricky. But don't worry, we just follow the main idea of this opening. Be aggressive by playing pawn d4 anyway. Black can now capture either one of our center pawns, but doesn't matter because one pawn will advance. Here's both cases. After that, here's a common follow-up. The main idea from here is queen d4, which can lead to a big sequence of trades. From here it's an open position, we can advantage of that by making the most out of our bishops. Likewise, if black captures on d4, so to summarize, the main idea after knight f6 is to keep playing aggressive and advance one of your center pawns. However, black can also play aggressive with d5, which exploits our weakness, the fact that we can't develop the knight on c3. But worry not, because we respond with the tricky queen of 4, pinning in the knight and also threatens the e5, since the pinned knight cannot protect it. This brings us back to the main advantage of this opening. It's difficult for black to defend correctly. For example, bishop d6 might look good for black, developing a piece and protecting e5, but that leaves d5 unprotected. However, we have to be careful too, because bishop d7 might look like it suffers the same problem of leaving d5 unprotected. Black can actually gambit their pawn and leave us with an almost equal position. Besides all of these responses, black's main response is actually f6, leaving black with a great chunk of space in an equal position. From here the game is a fight for the center. By the way, stick to the end for an example game, with Magnus Carlsen playing the ponziani. Now it's time to summarize and talk about the main idea of this opening. As we saw earlier, c3 is played to prepare d4, an aggressive opening, with the downside being that this blocks our knight. Many times black will try to take advantage of that, by attacking the e-pawn in some way. Even after looking at the lines that emerge, form knight f6 and pawn d5. Defending can still be tricky. So let's look at the role of each piece. The c-pawn helps the d-pawn strike at the center, and also opening a diagonal for the queen. The queen in many situations pins the c6 knight to leave the e-pawn unprotected for our knight to capture. The dark squared bishop sits here. Wait for a good opportunity to develop him. That also applies for his brother. There could be a less common situation, where black play pawn d6. In this case, remember the role each piece is assigned with and developed like normal. Before we move on to part 3, here is a fun trap you can use against the ponziani with the black pieces. Now time for the example game. Magnus with the white pieces is playing against this grandmaster. Don't try pronouncing it. The game obviously starts with the ponziani, and black decides to go with knight f6. Magnus strikes at the center and so does black. One pawn ends up advancing, and Magnus trades the knight for the bishop to have the e-pawn safer. In this position Magnus finds the right moment to develop the dark squared bishop, and we now enter the middle of the game. We now see some queenside pawns advancing and a trade of pawns, while Magnus keeps advancing the f-pawn. While Magnus is slowly building his attack, a trade of minor pieces happens. Despite being two pawns down, in this position e6 is played. The bishop cannot flee, because that would result in checkmate. Instead, black has to defend with pawn f6. However, this doesn't win Magnus a piece, because his knight is under attack. However, The knight is now on an outpost, controlling many squares at once. The next few moves are played and now the knight is kicked of the outpost, after some more back and forth. Black captures the bishop in exchange for their rook. The rook is attacked, but Magnus plays the smart move of knight takes c6, protecting the rook and snatching a pawn. Black, by capturing the rook, after some back and forth, Magnus ends up capturing a pawn and another pawn, giving him an 1-point advantage. And now Magnus leaves his knight hanging, is what somebody without advanced positional understanding. Instead, if Black was to capture the king would be in serious danger, because Magnus would get the opportunity to attack g7. So instead the right move for Black is to protect g7. Once again after more back and forth, Magnus builds a crashing attack. It may not look like much, but it's a 13+ advantage. In this position Black resigned. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing. I am planning on making more short tutorials like this. Bye.